Look at a modern map of Europe. Italy is easily identified by its famous boot shape. But for 1,500 years after the Roman Empire, this unified image didn't exist. The peninsula was fractured. Austrians controlled the north, the Pope the center, Bourbons the south. The first cracks in the system appeared in 1796 with the invasion of Napoleon Bonaparte. His army swept away old feudal laws and introduced the idea that people, not just kings, could define a nation's future. When Napoleon fell in 1815, the Congress of Vienna tried to turn back the clock, restoring the old foreign rulers. But they couldn't erase the desire for unity, which began to spread through secret revolutionary societies. To actually redraw the map, 3 different approaches had to align: the passion of the revolutionaries, the calculations of the politicians, and the military risks of a rogue general. The intellectual momentum for this change came from Giuseppe Mazzini. In 1831, he founded Young Italy, a movement dedicated to a single, independent nation. Mazzini believed Italy could only be forged through a bottom-up revolution. He argued that the people themselves had to rise up and seize their independence. That theory was tested in 1848 when revolutions broke out across Europe. In Italy, citizens rebelled against Austrian rule, but the Austrian military was too professional and too well-equipped. The rebellions were systematically crushed. Mazzini's failures proved that while passion was essential to start the movement, it wasn't enough to defeat an imperial army on its own. While revolutionaries focused on the streets, Count Camillo di Cavour focused on the courts. As Prime Minister of Sardinia-Piedmont, he took a more pragmatic approach. Cavour spent years modernizing his state's economy, building railways and industries to create a modern power. He understood that to remove Austria from the north, he needed the support of a major European ally. In 1859, his diplomacy paid off. He secured a secret alliance with France and provoked a war that forced Austria to retreat. Following victories at Magenta and Solferino, the region of Lombardy was finally brought under Italian control. Cavour had successfully secured the north through high-level diplomacy, but he still had no influence over the Bourbon control south. While Cavour worked through treaties, Giuseppe Garibaldi took the initiative through direct action. In 1860, he launched the Expedition of the Thousand. He sailed for Sicily with a volunteer force of just 1,000 red shirts. His campaign was a shock to the established powers. Garibaldi's volunteers defeated the Bourbon forces, took Sicily, and then marched into Naples, liberating the southern half of the peninsula in just a few months. This created a dangerous moment. Garibaldi's revolutionary army was marching north toward Rome, while the king's northern army was moving south. Many feared the movement would collapse into a civil war between the two factions. Garibaldi chose to prioritize the nation over his own leadership. He met King Victor Emmanuel II and handed over all the territory he had conquered. This act of cooperation finally turned the various regions into a single kingdom of Italy. Even with a king on the throne in 1861, the map was incomplete. 2 major pieces remained outside the new borders: Venetia in the north and Rome in the center. Italy waited for the right international opportunities. They joined Prussia in a war against Austria in 1866 to gain Venetia. Later, in 1870, when the French troops protecting Rome were pulled away to fight the Prussians, Italian forces finally found the city. Rome officially became part of Italy in 1870 and was named the national capital the following year. The borders were finally settled. But the internal reality was difficult. The new nation faced widespread poverty and illiteracy. There was a sharp economic divide between the growing industries of the north and the rural poverty of the south. Political unity had been achieved on paper, but the work of creating a single functioning society across these different regions would take decades of modernization. Geopolitically, the Risorgimento altered Europe. It ended centuries of Austrian influence over the peninsula and signaled the decline of the old imperial order. The unification demonstrated that a combination of diplomacy and revolution could successfully redraw the map of the continent, encouraging similar nationalist movements across Europe. Italy's story shows that major historical shifts are rarely the work of a single person. It took the vision of the revolutionaries, the patience of the politicians, and the courage of the soldiers to finally turn a divided peninsula into a modern nation.